where the big stores of ammunition and depot. That's it. The point that you are hearing rumors, false reports, please take your camera tomorrow morning, even this night, go to every city in Libya. Everything is calm, everything is peaceful. The point, there is a big gap between reality and the media reports.
Our correspondent in Benghazi, Hoda Abdelhamid, has been speaking to some Libyans about the Gaddafi family's recent comments.
As one Libyan told me, he has stopped listening to any of the speeches given by either Muammar Gaddafi or his son since the very early stages of this uprising, because simply he feels that they're not in touch with the reality on the ground. Now, if you look at what's happening around the country, certainly here in the east at the moment, there's no gunfire, there's no violence, but anyone you would talk to would tell you that it's a very volatile situation, yet people don't know how this will unfold, whether the opposition will reach its goal of overthrowing the regime or whether the regime will manage to crush the opposition. Now, there's still violence going on in the rest of the country, specifically in the west. There are reports of tanks heading towards Zawiya, for example, trying to take back that city from the hands of the opposition. So peace and stability in Libya, I think it's something that is not happening at the moment. Meanwhile, there is a national council that is trying to organize itself to become the public face of this opposition, to become also a contact point for the international community. They would like to see the international community imposing a no-fly zone, because in their view, that would hinder the ability of the regime to bring in mercenaries from Africa. And in their view, these mercenaries are one of the biggest threats to their lives. This National Council is still at its early stages. It is headed at the moment by the former Justice Minister, but it's still organizing itself really, and it's really falling short of calling itself an interim government, because they do say that to have an interim government you need to have a capital, and at the moment Tripoli is still in the hand of the regime.
The Emir of the Gulf state of Qatar has spoken about the Libyan uprising. He's called on Gaddafi to stop the bloodshed. And while ruling out an intervention by other Arab nations, he urged the entire world to take a strong stance.
I believe when it comes to Europe and the whole world, against the background of revolutions taking place in the Arab world, we need clear-cut positions from the start. It is not acceptable for them to wait to see on whose side the balance will tip, then adopt a position. And what is feared in the Arab world that if certain dictatorship regimes manage to contain the situation, Europe will side with those regimes. Therefore, we always look forward to swift positions to be adopted. With regards to Libya and other Arab states seeing changes, I see that humanitarian aids and medical supplies must be dispatched. We must find access passages, whether through seaports or airports, especially that Europe can control air transport movements.
Foreign governments are pulling their citizens out of Libya by whatever means possible. Harry Smith reports on a covert desert operation by the German government.
British oil workers arriving in Malta after being rescued in a military operation shrouded in secrecy. Details are still sketchy, but it's believed 2 British Air Force transport planes entered Libyan airspace without permission. The British refused to reveal exact locations, but it's believed an airfield at Nafura was used to rescue 150 stranded oil workers. Soldiers from the elite SAS regiment were apparently on board, and the evacuees were then flown to safety in Malta. And in the last few hours, the British Ministry of Defence have confirmed that 150 civilians have been evacuated from other areas in Libya.
It was scheduled to be 65, but in the end there was about 130 got on.
Really?
Yeah.
And
we were sitting in the aisles, it's very cramped, but we were just glad to be out of there and getting on the flights.
The British, along with other governments, have also sent warships to Tripoli and Benghazi in attempts to bring out their citizens. But it's thought more rescue missions will be needed to airlift hundreds more oil workers stranded in the south.
As I said, there's still people in the desert, so I can't say too much. I can't say where I came from, etc., etc. Because the guys down there are still doing an excellent job to gather all the guys together and get them evacuated.
The Foreign Office here in London has come in for severe criticism for what's perceived to be its slow response to the plight of Britons trapped in Libya. An official I spoke to a short time ago declined to comment on this latest rescue mission, but said they remain deeply concerned for the plight of other Britons trapped in remote areas of Libya. Harry Smith, Al Jazeera, London.
Jordan's Prime Minister is promising to introduce new political reforms after the opposition threatened more demonstrations. It comes as supporters of King Abdullah held a show of solidarity in the capital, Amman. The rally follows weeks of nationwide protests by the opposition. Its leaders say the country's pace of reform has been too slow. Thousands of people marched through the capital of Bahrain in a demonstration against the monarchy. Protesters have rejected the king's appeal for dialogue and called for him to step down. The impasse is entering its third week. The demonstrators' demands include free elections and the release of more political prisoners. 4 people have died in bomb attacks that forced the closure of Iraq's largest oil refinery. The blast sparked a huge fire at the site north of Baghdad in an area which was once an al-Qaeda stronghold. Iraq's oil minister says it hit only 1 production unit. Iraq's oil products are only used for domestic power generation and consumption and not exported. Aides for the Arab League Secretary General Amir Moussa have confirmed he intends to run for Egyptian president. The Egyptian state news agency made the announcement through on Sunday. Moussa's office says while he intends to stand, his candidacy won't be official until proposed constitutional changes are enacted. Officials in Egypt unveiled the first proposed political reforms since the revolution. Now, while they allow new political parties, restrictions on the participation of the Muslim Brotherhood have not been lifted. Anita McNaught reports from Cairo.
As emotions subside on Tahrir Square, the business of making change happen for all Egyptians has begun. The Egyptian constitution perpetuated the country's draconian emergency laws and consolidated power in the hands of the former president. This committee of legal experts was tasked by Egypt's temporary rulers, the military, with proposing reforms to 6 articles. They tackled 11. But one controversial paragraph remains untouched, Article 5, that prohibits parties with religious affiliations from standing in elections. One of the committee members is with the Muslim Brotherhood, the party most affected by this exclusion. Far from being concerned about the omission, he believes it was too contentious for them to touch.
It's a flawed article, but we didn't want to amend any article that had an ideological dimension. We're leaving that to an elected committee.
But political analyst Gamel Sultan doesn't think this law will pose an obstacle to the Muslim Brotherhood in the future.
It is not about the text itself. It's about the context within which this text is going to be interpreted. And I think the current and the future context will be much more tolerant vis-à-vis the Muslim Brotherhood.
Egypt's popular revolution threw up a new generation of progressive political activists, the hope of a vibrant and reinvigorated country, a break with the past. But critics of these first tentative steps say the march to new elections is going too fast, with these new players not given the time to form parties, and they warn the constitutional reforms don't go far enough. They don't secure a place for the new voices. They may even entrench the old ones.
This is a system that is likely to create or to allow a bigger chance for the Muslim Brothers plus the NDP to dominate the new parliament. It looks like some sort of a deal is there, a sort of a deal at the expense at the new, modern, secular, social and political forces.
The people of Egypt are impatient for change. If they find 6 months down the track that the revolution has merely delivered a new version of the old order, some of these people are going to be seriously disappointed. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, in Tahrir Square, Cairo.
New Zealand will begin to bury victims of the earthquake on Monday. At least 148 people were killed in last week's quake in Christchurch. 50 more are still unaccounted for. The dead and missing include people from 20 nations. The first burial service is planned for a 5-month-old victim. Heavy rains caused a hillside to collapse in Bolivia's capital, destroying 150 homes. Residents in the La Paz neighborhood began evacuating on Saturday. There were no casualties. According to officials, 44 people have been killed in recent weeks by flooding and mudslides. Fighting in Côte d'Ivoire's commercial capital, Abidjan, has forced some residents there to flee the violence. Battles between forces loyal to the incumbent president, Laurent Gbagbo, and those allied with opposition leader Alassane Ouattara have raged for the past week. The UN says pro-Bakbo forces have killed at least 300 Ouattara supporters during the 3-month political standoff. The 83rd Annual Academy Awards ceremony is set to begin in a couple of hours from now. The King's Speech star Colin Firth arrived on the red carpet just moments ago. His film is up for 12 nominations, including Best Picture. Other films expected to do well are The Social Network, Black Swan and Toy Story 3. Rob Reynolds has more now on Hollywood's big night, and the movie's hoping to win a Golden Statuette.
Final preparations are underway for Hollywood's biggest show. This year, there are no blue-skinned space aliens and just one special effects blockbuster in the Best Picture category. Dramas take center stage. Here's the list.
What'll I call you?
Your Royal Highness.
The King's Speech is the story of an accidental monarch's struggle with stuttering and self-doubt. The film stars Colin Firth, who is also nominated for Best Actor.
You really need to relax.
Black Swan harrowingly portrays a prima ballerina's artistic triumph and simultaneous descent into madness. Natalie Portman is a front-runner for Best Actress.
This is something I just never allow.
In The Kids Are All Right, a lesbian couple's teenage children contact their biological father, nearly destroying the family. Annette Bening has a Best Actress nomination. James Franco finds himself literally stuck between a rock and a hard place in 127 Hours, a graphic survival story directed by Danny Boyle. Best Actor nominee Franco also hosts this year's Oscar broadcast. Westerns are among the most venerable of movie genres. In True Grit, Best Actor nominee Jeff Bridges is a whiskey-swilling, syllable-swallowing, straight-shooting lawman who helps a young girl track down the bad guy who killed her father.
Who are you?
The ruthless digital frontier is examined in The Social Network. Jesse Eisenberg's channeling of unlikable Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg earned him a Best Actor nomination. In the special effects-heavy film Inception, Leonardo DiCaprio dabbles in the stuff that other people's dreams are made of. Winter's Bone depicts a teenage girl's wretched journey through impoverished, meth-addled rural Missouri in search of her no-good, drug-dealing daddy.
I'll find him.
20-year-old Jennifer Lawrence's portrayal of the tough-as-nails teen earned her a Best Actress nomination.
New toys! Yeah!
Pixar's Toy Story 3 rounds out the Best Picture nominations, with wisecracking playthings fleeing the garbage truck in search of a child's love. The animated feature was the top-grossing 2010 film worldwide. Also nominated for Best Actor, Javier Bardem in the Spanish-language film Beautiful. Nicole Kidman in Rabbit Hole and Michelle Williams in Blue Valentine are in the running for Best Actress awards. 2010 was the biggest box office year in history, according to the Motion Picture Association, with worldwide ticket sales topping a record $31.8 billion. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, Hollywood.
This is Al Jazeera, and these are the stories making headlines. The United Nations has unanimously voted to impose immediate sanctions on the Libyan regime. It comes as anti-Gaddafi protesters close in on the capital, Tripoli. But there remain pockets of pro-Gaddafi camps scattered across the country. The Libyan leader is defiant, saying he will not leave. Reports from western Libya say troops loyal to Gaddafi are preparing for a counter-offensive in the city of AlJazeera. The city's centre is currently in the hands of anti-Gaddafi forces. These are the latest pictures from the city, just 50 kilometers west of the capital, Tripoli. We're also getting reports that the country's second most important military base has fallen to the protesters. Private jets at the Al Banin military airport were seen grounded. Military personnel say they have joined the People's Revolution. If true, the takeover is a major blow to Gaddafi's regime. The U.S. Secretary of State is in Geneva ahead of a UN Human Rights Council meeting on Libya. Hillary Clinton arrived in Switzerland late on Sunday. The United States has been vocal in its condemnation of Gaddafi's regime, calling on the Libyan leader to respect his people's wishes and leave now. Fresh fighting has broken out in the Tunisian capital, Tunis. Police fired tear gas and warning shots in the capital, Tunis, to disperse crowds on a third consecutive day of violence. The violence comes as Mohamed Ghannouchi announces he will step down as Prime Minister. He had planned to guide the country to elections in July after President Zine El Abidine